interesting history with this particular film, because I didn't see it as a film at first. We had the record. We had the double record that belongs to the film with the pictures, and there's an inlay with the lyrics. And I played it a lot. I mean, I like a lot. Seriously, like a lot. Embarrassingly a lot. And actually that is a good introduction to this film, because it actually started out as a concept album. It had no imagery at all. It was not a theater piece, even though the people who made it are now, or have been for a very long time, into theater, and they wanted to go into theater, but they were a bunch of Brits, and there was no at the West End, which is the London version of Broadway, they were doing American plays about English things, like My Fair Lady, but they're not doing English things. So come with an original English property that also was very modern, as in rock. Yeah, they got nowhere. So they started off with a single and the backside. The single of Superstar, the final number of the show. And that version was Murray Head did it. He played Judas in that. So, and just released it as a single, and then it got some traction, and from then on they got a let's make an album, and they did a complete. The very first album was already a doubler. It was like an hour and 24 minutes runtime altogether. The entire story. The version that I was listening to is the film version, and it had a couple of more songs, but basically it's the same. They changed very little. I mean, a word here and there, and they added the two songs. The second, a ballad, they added that, and a little bit more for Pilate to say. So basically, that's as word perfect as you can get, I think, with adaptations. Films of musicals have a very bad reputation of failing flat out on their ass. And one of the things I think they do wrong, and what I see, is that in these film adaptations of a Broadway musical, or some musical that's been on the stage, they slot in a bunch of actors who, yeah, they sing fairly enough. And they act well, because that's what they're supposed to do. But it doesn't work. This production did not make that mistake. They actually picked the Mary Magdalene, Yvonne Elliman, is from the concept album. She was on the stage in New York, and to this production, ditto with Barry Dennen, who was the Pilate in the concept album and on the stage and here. Judas was not on the concept album, but because it was Murray Head, was on the concept album. But he was on the on the stage in America. The first production they did was actually in America, because they couldn't get it going in London. So the first production is New York. He was there as an understudy to Ben Vereen, who was actually playing Judas, but Ben Vereen got ill, and so Carl Anderson took over, and Ben Vereen got back, and then they started to alternate. So he has got lots of chops there. Ted Neeley, who sort of, you go, where does this Ted Neeley come from? Because we've seen him, we in the Peanut Gallery have seen him in one episode of Streets of San Francisco, which is on the other side of the country. Starsky and Hutch, yes. In Starsky and Hutch, which is on the other side of the country, of course, being recorded. So what is he doing in New York doing this? He was on the stage, but he was in Tommy, the musical. I think he played a big part in that. But he was the understudy for Jesus on the stage. I don't think he ever got a chance to do it, but for whatever reason, by the time they wanted to do this movie,
he was available.
He was available, and maybe the other guy wasn't, because I did not look at it very closely in that sense. I mean, I read some of the story, but so, and sometimes is a matter of just who's available. If this other guy had already had another gig, then he's not available, and Ted Neeley was, and
epic. Can I say that Neeley asked to be in Starsky and Hutch, and they actually gave him a Jesus role.
Yeah, because it is after the movie. It's the movie's from 1973, and Starsky and Hutch is episode 76 or 77, something like that.
It's almost the final. It's two episodes before the final episode, and they needed a sacrificial lamb. Well, there you go.
So that's 1978. So that's 5 years after this movie. This movie, it was a sleeper, but it's a sleeper everybody saw. It's one of those, but it actually bombed in that sense. However, there are a bunch of reasons why it should have bombed way, way, way harder. For one thing, it's a rock opera. The entire thing is in singing.
No spoken lines.
No spoken lines at all. And, what makes this is a bunch of smart choices that they made early on. Like getting in the right cast, because all these singers are singers, and incidental if they can act, that's fine. It's not what that's about. So we're good. So the music is wonderful. The album sold. I think the album actually sold more than the film ever did. In 1973, a film is a kind of an ephemeral thing. It's in the cinema, and if you don't catch it, it's gone. But the album you buy, you sit on yourself, and it's on yourself in 1974, and in 5, and in 6, and by the time I listened to it in 1982, it's still around. And you know what? It's still around. So you can keep listening to it forever and ever and ever. And so I think the album, any of the versions of the album, so the original concept album and this album is the ones with the most traction and the most fame. Peanut Gallery had something to say.
Well, it's not just the album, but the film now as well. Every Easter, that film can be shown. It can be in the theaters. It can be on your streaming, but before streaming, it could be on television. It could be... It's just...
Yeah, it could be, but for our little world, it's not. I think it's been on TV maybe twice altogether, because it's a bit much. But there was another YouTuber I was listening to about some of the history, and he said, I know this thing from every Easter on our television, and I think that was a videotape that the family put on, because religious family, so you want that on. So he was reviewing it from that point of view. The story is heavy. I mean, heavy. And I think that what they did with the movie is realize that. And the opening, I think the opening is absolutely wonderful. The opening, of course, is not... the overture is, but you can't see it when it's on the LP. But the company arrives in a modern bus, and everybody gets off. You see the person that you at this point you don't know, but when you've seen it for the second time, you know. Oh well, that's going to be the Judas, and that's going to be the Mary, and that's going to be Pilate, and that's going to be Herod, and everybody gets off, and almost first thing that happens is that the Judas character is starting to leave the company already. Whilst people are still unpacking, he's sort of secreting himself away. And then it isn't until they actually start to clap their hands and start waving them around that we haven't seen Jesus yet. And we don't see Jesus until he's actually being hoisted in his costume. You never see him as a regular person. Smartly done. And the way the film goes out is in the same way. So, yeah. Because this story, this entire rock opera, has been composed as a concept album, everything is in the music. The movie is nice. I mean, I love the movie, but it only can illustrate the songs, give the songs image. There's nothing, maybe some touches they can add, but they cannot add anything substantial, nor should they. I think that's fine. The music makes the emotions, and some of the mime makes some of the extra drama, that like touching hands and caressing faces and all that kind of stuff. And for a storytelling point, they made an interesting choice of who is our POV character, our point of view character. If you look at the original texts from the Bible, which is what this was based on, the Gospels are written by 4 different chaps. Not all of them are actually there at all. And they are talking about events that happened and words that were said. From another point of view than Jesus. This is called Jesus Christ Superstar, but it is not told from Jesus' point of view for the most part. It is told to start with Judas' point of view. Judas, as a human being, Jesus, who sees Jesus as a human being, live in the world that they live in. Politics and stuff that's going on. There's like 4 different kinds of politics going on. And one of the criticisms that I'm going to have of this piece, which is both a strength and a criticism, is that because of the rock, because the whole thing is in song, you don't have time. You can, and music can do emotion very well, but it doesn't do exposition very well. They do try a couple of times, but you need a lot more lyrics to do it justice. So if you don't know some of the stuff that's going on, what the situation is before you even open the movie, this might be rough. But being a Western world person, most of the effects of this you already know to go in, and yeah, they don't explain the other stuff, but the music makes out for it, kind of. The emotions are there. It's just the explanations are not. But that's kind of part and parcel of an opera. This is Jesus Christ Superstar, the rock opera. It is called an opera because operas do this. They sing lyrically about something emotional, and they fudge all the politics because that's not what it's about. And so, as a film about these events, this is not the first one I would give to a person. That said, I think this one is one of the few secular interpretations of the story that doesn't make any value judgments. It doesn't make up anything, because Bible story of events as a set of events that have a continuation that you can make into a sense-making story is not that good. It's not what the Bible is about. The Bible is about Jesus went there and he said that, and then that happened, and then how he got from one place to another. It's not that interesting. It's not what it's about. So this thing embraced that and let that be, while showing a bunch of characters with issues. One of the main issues is the political times, which are indeed not explained properly. That's a failing. So, not your first place to go for this one, but which is kind of my first place to go. I mean, I was aware of the gist of the story, of course, but some of the nitty-gritty of it, I got it from this thing. So, but then you go look for other stuff if you want to know more. It is also an abstract interpretation, and I think that's because of the theater roots. It's the theater roots of this thing, because from the concept album to a production in New York and then to this movie, because they were filming in actual locations in Israel, and they filmed at Nazareth. I mean, yeah, but these are very old locations, 2,000 plus years old locations. You can't just say, oh, let's build a little, some huts here or something, just to put a couple of thingies into the ground and drill a couple of holes everywhere. Nah. So you kind of stuck with, this is what it looks like, and you cannot change anything. It was either there or they asked it to be there, was a bunch of modern scaffolding. The modern scaffolding is very useful for the priest scene, where the priests are walking all over them and climbing on top of them to give a little height, as in buildings. They wanted to show buildings. But it's abstract because, duh. They were also, and I was reading that, they were also so close to an Arab settlement, and there had been a war not that long ago there. So they were going, the Arabs were waving guns around. Oh God! So they could have had to vacate to a different spot any time. So you can't build big things anyway. But because they were already from the stage, which is a stage is by definition abstract, because you have this boxy stage and you can put it like a box there and say, okay, that's a cradle, and you can put a pole there and say, oh, that's a tree, because that works on a stage. Taking that to a movie, it's difficult, but I think they did it the right way, because they left everything about the surrounding the same. It's stuff from 2,000 years ago. They didn't touch it at all. The scaffolding, like I said, the scaffolding even looks like it was there already. So it might have been. And they just used it. They used the pillars. There's a lovely scene of the dancers dancing between the pillars. But they don't touch the pillars because that's not going to be happening. You can still dance between them, so fine. Then they have the costumes, which are very generic. These are the kind of costumes that you would take on the stage, because they like the generic stuff on stage. In opera, in actual opera, as well as rock opera, you have your abstract stage. You might as well, and you have something that's like 14th century or something. Just let's do something abstract. So the clothing is like hippie abstract in an old setting, and I think it works because the story, because of the music, is also abstract. It's about emotions that you're whittling down to the very basic thing here, and which is not for everyone. Which is why this thing was definitely not for everyone, and it is not for everyone. Apart from your music tastes, it's not for everyone. And one of the reasons is the story. It is such a sad story, if you think about it. I mean, it starts with Jesus, and really, he can't win. Judas, he can't win. Mary, no. And Judas, they actually have to gets driven mad. Mary can't win. Even Pilate is going home upset. This is altogether a no-win situation, and this is one reason why I'm saying this is a secular interpretation, non-judgmental secular interpretation of this story. Like a musical postcard, basically, for each of the events. And something that I realized the recent time I watched it, which is literally yesterday, is that the thing is set in a very, very tight period, and I recognize this period. It is this period of 3 days of the last 3 days of Christ is called the Passion of Christ, and it is actually a set of days that has been put into place for 2,000 years. The more known way of putting a religious thing into a place, like a nativity play. I mean, every British kid knows about a nativity play. This is the play that goes with Easter, and they've been doing that in Middle Ages. In England for a very long time. They stopped doing it about the time Shakespeare, but before that they had passion plays every year, and And I think Andrew Lloyd Webber, who wrote the music, and Tim Rice. Andrew Lloyd Webber was classically trained. He would know about this. Both of them are saying that they didn't do this from a religious point of view. They thought it was an interesting story, which I think I believe that. But Andrew Lloyd Webber would have known that the Passion Play is these events, and they're literally this event: the entering of Jesus into Jerusalem, the cleansing of the temple, that's in there, the anointing of Jesus with the oil, the Last Supper, his emotional agony, that's called the agony, his arrests, the trial with the priests and Pilate and with Herod, his travel to the cross, his death, even as an extra thing that said that sometimes is in these Passion Plays is the mourning of the mother, Mary the mother, not Mary Magdalene, but Mary the mother, crying for her child while she's sitting at the cross. In this one, they have Mary Magdalene do it because the mother is not in this, but it's in there. So they know this list. It's in there. So this is a Passion Play, and it stops at the death of Jesus. Passion Play is not the resurrection. That's a different play, a different set of plays, I suppose. But yeah. Musical illustrations of these events. Beautifully done. Everybody's wonderful in this. And so much hair everywhere. Hair and glitter and skin. And I really love that the Judas, or anyone in this, is black. Judas is black, and Mary Magdalene, she's actually Hawaiian. And she was picked very early on because she is on the concept album, so she was picked very early on. And the reason that some of the people on the concept album are not in the production and then in the film is because this concept album was the bigger roles, except for Murray Head, who was in stage. They were not stage people at all. They were rock musicians, and they had their own lives, so they couldn't. That was not meant to be. So we have now Ted Neeley and Carl Anderson and all the others, and we are very happy. They were all on the stage and went back to the stage. A whole bunch of the dancers from some of the scenes were a couple of years later, nearly 10 years later, in the chorus line. So, again, another musical that did well because it actually starred the people that it's supposed to star and not other people. So this is how to do it right. I think of all the Andrew Lloyd Webber things that I have listened to, which is not all of them, this one's the best. First and the best. It's tightly written. They made all the right choices. Nothing is without fault, but it doesn't need to be without fault, But tightly written. It has like this funny tune in the middle for King Herod. There's a funny tune of him, and whereas the whole thing is very heavy, and there was a ballad that was nice, but was still heavy because everybody is having problems. And then King Herod does this very silly song, and you sort of go, what the F? And I think it was the right choice because you need a break. You need a break from all of that. So well thought out. Yeah, I think it was the best thing he ever did. I can highly recommend it, but it is not for everyone. And the reason I actually pushed forward watching the movie again is because of the emotion, because that's a lot. It's a lot, and it doesn't end well. But it's an opera, operas don't end well. That's kind of the point of an opera. Everybody dead at the end, which is what happened, basically. So, I think that's my opinion, and I'm... one other thing that I want to say is they filmed it in Israel, as a co-production with Israel. So that's why they got a lot of spaces to go to, and they got the flybys by the army. That's the real army. Some of the soldiers that you see are actual real army. A lot of the extras in this thing are all Israelis. They're all locals. So, just wanted to say that. Co-production with Israel, basically. And that really is my opinion. And I'm sticking to it.